welcome to the Brutus Monroe channel. Annie Collins here. Today we're going to create this Aloha card. Let's go over the products I used to create this card. First is our Hawaiian shirt stencil. I'm going to bring in a piece of cardstock here just so you can see the design better. It has some pineapples, two different flowers, and two different shapes of leaves. So you can see here, these are some flowers, some leaves. They have larger leaves and smaller leaves. Alright, so we're going to use this with our chroma glaze. We're going to bring in 6 colors of chroma glaze today. We're going to have yellow, coral, purple, teal, lime, and gold. We're going to use these not with our usual palette knife, but with some finger daubers. We're going to try a little sponging through our stencil with our chroma glaze. I'm going to set these aside really quick. Okay, so we are going to use our card panel here. Well, first I'm using the stick and stamp palette, pigment palette to put our chroma glaze down. Now you can see there's some chroma glaze on my palette. That's because I used it ahead of time, just a little practice to see if it would work nicely using the finger daubers. And it does, so that's why we're using it today for our card. I will refresh my palette in a moment. Alright, so for our card, I have a panel which is made from Not Your Mama's cardstock. That's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 because we're making an A2 size card. That's what we're going to be stenciling on. So I'm going to go ahead and place that on my stick and stamp mat. I also have layering cardstock in a little bit darker yellow than the yellow we're using in the chroma glaze. And that's 80 pounds or so. So I'm going to use that. I also have 2 other pieces of cardstock here. One is a scrap of the Not Your Mama. That's where we're going to stamp our sentiment. And the other one is a light green or a lime green colored cardstock. It's similar to our lime green chroma glaze. And our card base, which is made from Not Your Mama. For our sentiment, we're going to use our Beach Bump stamp set. And we're going to use this sentiment that reads Aloha. So let's get started. If you're don't have finger daubers, of course you can use your finger to put the glaze through. I did that at one point just to check which one would work better, but I like the finger dauber because I like the way the sponge leaves a little texture behind. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh my palette here, and as you can see I use a palette knife just to scoop them up, and I replace the little plastic insert that's in there. Please do so. That's how you keep your chroma glaze nice and fresh and without drying out. Alright, so now that we have just about all of our glazes back on here, I'm just going to put a little dab of the gold on here. That's the one we're going to use the least of. Just going to use it for our center of our flowers. That's why we only have a small little dab. So if you get too messy and you're worried about getting into another section, you could use, like I did here really quickly, some post-it tape or masking tape, whichever you have, or even just a plain post-it, just to mask off any of the little areas you do not want that particular color of chroma glaze going into. So we're going to start off with our pineapple here, and I do all the pineapples first and then I move on. So we did the green and the yellow chroma glaze here, and then I just keep going and I just dab up and down. I'm not doing a swirling motion, just up and down dabbing. And I try to move as quickly as possible. Okay, I didn't move this fast. This is sped up for editing process. But you can see you can use your finger or your sponge daubers. Either one will work. And like I said, I move pretty quickly, just so I didn't have all that chroma glaze sitting on my stencil for too long, but it does come off. I like to clean my stencils if the glaze has been sitting on just a little too long with this orange cleaner. You usually find it in the automotive department or in the Home Depot kind of thing, home improvement store I should say. It's got an orange scent and it has like this little grit to it. And it's very gentle, so I just use a little bit of that on my hands and then I rub it on my stencil and everything comes off. So now I've moved on to the pink flowers. Like I said, I masked anything that was too close that I didn't want any of the other colors going through. I just continued just up and down dabbing from one to the other. And I found that it was easier to stick to that one image or one element at a time. So I did all the pineapples, then all the pink flowers, and then I'll move on accordingly. Then I'll go on to my purple flowers, which I didn't have that many. I tried my best to keep the stencil where I kept at least 3 little hints of that purple in there. So I got the purple flower in, and next we're going to move on to our leaves. I start out with the teal. I just put a little bit on there. I wanted the bigger leaves to be slightly different than the smaller ones. So then I go back on and add some of the lime on top of the teal, and it blends beautifully. Once it dries, you'll see how nice and even it comes out. It looks really nice. And then just add a little shadowing to the leaves. I went ahead and added just a bit of the teal to those. Now for the centers of my flowers, that's what I use the gold for. I use one of these Fantastics from Sukaneko. It just has the same thing. It's a spongy little tip, but it's really skinny, and it was perfect for adding the center to our flowers. So I'm gently removing my stencil. I'm going to remove my palette really quick, set it to the side, and now I can peel up my card panel. All you do to do that is you just curl your stick and stamp mat just a bit. I'm going to clean my stick and stamp mat using some matte cleaner. This is formulated just to clean out your stick and stamp mat. It cleans it without removing all the adhesive that's on there. I replace my cover, and then just in case you're wondering, what do you do with all that extra leftover glaze? I just scrape it onto another panel and save it for another project. That's what I do with any glitter glaze or chroma glaze, etc. Alright, so here's our panel all dry. It dried pretty quickly because it wasn't like thick on there. And now we're going to bring in the rest of our card pieces. First, I'm going to trim down the front panel here. And then I realized I have the wrong trimmer, but it's okay. I switch quickly and I get the right trimmer. My small trimmer I usually just use for sentiments. I had it available because I knew I needed to trim my sentiment. I just grabbed the wrong one. It happens. All right, so now I'm going to adhere my card together. I use some Barely Art glue to adhere the top panel onto that layering cardstock. I'm going to adhere both these panels to our card base. And again, our card base is made from Not Your Mama's cardstock. I press it into place firmly, and now I set it to the side for a second so we can stamp our sentiment. I'm going to use our Raven Detail ink to ink up our sentiment, which reads Aloha, and I'll stamp it, and then I'm going to trim it down, and then I'll layer it onto that light green cardstock. Just going to give it a quick check, yep, and then I'm going to give it a little slant there to the sentiment, just for a little interest. I'm going to go ahead and layer that using some Barely Art glue to adhere it onto our green cardstock. And I will once again trim that down so I have a nice little edge of it sticking out. And I picked this light green because I didn't want it to compete. I just wanted it to flow nicely into our card. I'm going to use some foam adhesive to adhere this to our card. And then I'll remove all the backing here, and now place it onto our card front. I'm also going to add some acrylic bubbles in a green, a pink, and a yellow. My camera cuts off, so you miss me adhering them, but you see me putting the Barely Art glue in the little spots where there's going to be. But here is the finished card with our little acrylic bubbles that blend nicely. They don't take over, so you can see the beautiful design of our stencil. I'm trying to show you here, there you go, you can pick it up, that the chroma glaze in gold dries so pretty. It looks really creamy when it comes out, but then it dries this nice shiny gold. I like the way this came out because the sponge left this little texture behind, and you can actually feel it on your card, and it left like little spongy details, so it has a nice texture to the flowers. So again, we used the Beach Bum stamp set just for our sentiment that reads Aloha. We use the Hawaiian shirt stencil, which has got beautiful pineapples and flowers and leaves on it, very tropical, and chroma glaze in the colors of coral, teal, purple, lime, yellow, and gold. And of course we use our Raven detail ink for our sentiment. But like always, I'm going to have everything in the description box below for you, so with links to the store. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, and let me go ahead and grab it really quickly, is our stick and stamp mat and our pigment, aqua pigment palette. So I'll bring those in here in a second. Here we go. So we use those to hold everything in our palette, just to keep our chroma glaze, and some finger daubers to use with our stencil. But like I said, like always, I'll have everything in the description box below with links to the shop. And I would like to thank you for being here. I hope you found some inspiration. Again, this is Annie Collins from Brutus Monroe.